Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Under the Pines podcast. This is a special episode. I talked to Eben Britton, one of the humans that inspired me to start with this podcast. So I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of how far I've come with this little project. And it's a full circle moment for me, right? Because back then when I decided to start, I said to myself, okay, I will probably really enjoy talking to him as well. And that time has come now. So yeah, I'd invite you to listen through the whole, hour and 15. There's so much wisdom in there, plenty of nuggets. We talk a lot about his life story, mine as well. And we're both very optimistic about what's coming, probably contrary to what the media is saying these days. Surely we're on a shift. This world is shifting and we're in the midst of it. But, there's no space to hide for the evil out there anymore. It's all visible. It's all coming to the surface. And as we all know, the truth doesn't need any energy to be the truth. But lies, they do need the energy to be upheld as lies, right? So it's another really good episode in my opinion. And if you think so too, if you got any value out of this, please, share it with a friend. This will help a lot. Thank you for that. And let's jump right in. Eben, hello.
Hey, bro.
Hey, man. Yeah, we just talked about your experience last week, and we can get back to that. But I don't know if you know that, but this is like a full circle moment for me. I was inspired basically by you and Jared in the end to start this podcast. So yeah, I didn't tell you that yet, I guess. And so yeah, that's great. It's just so good to see that. And yeah, because otherwise, who would have known like that we end up here, right? Like it's truly magical. But
I love that, dude.
Yeah, but yeah, tell me about last week, because you went wild, you said, and
Yeah,
it didn't start as
well,
planned, right?
it did not. Before we go there, though, let's just to acknowledge this moment. Yeah, let's have a few breaths.
Do it.
Let's do 3 breaths together. So wherever you are, if you're listening to this at home or if you're driving a car, just keep your eyes open, but you can follow along. So feel the weight of your body in your seat. Just let everything relax. Take a deep breath in through your nose. And let it all out. Let everything go. Let everything get soft. Let all the resistance go. Take another breath in. And just let it go. Wherever there's tension in your body, see if you can just release it. Let go of it. Surrender to it. Take another breath in. Fill it all the way up to the top. Sip it at the top and hold this one in. And let it all go. Nice. Let everything go. Just settle right into the moment. Be here. Nice, dude. That's the way to start it.
Yeah.
So,
totally.
Yeah, I was telling you before you hit the record button that first day we're out. We get on the river. We launch the rafts onto the river. Day 1. Cruising around for a little while. It's pretty gray and chilly. And gray and chilly on the river is not ideal because when you get wet, you get freezing cold. And I didn't, it was warm when we left, so I had not enough layers on for what was coming, but I was just breathing through it. I was like, all right, Ed, here's a good opportunity for you to practice what you preach and see if this breath work does what you claim it does. So I just tuned into my breath. I was doing various exercises, tumo, which is a heat generating exercise, tumo breathing, otherwise known as Wim Hof. This was started by monks living in the Himalayas who are walking around freezing cold, extreme temperatures, and have to keep themselves warm, wearing not much but blankets and linens, So I was doing that, really worked, kept me warm, doing a handful of other breathing exercises, breath holds, doing ujjayi breathing, which is a yogic breathing exercise where you breathe into the back of your throat like, I don't know if you can hear that. Mm-hmm. But essentially, if your breathing sounds like Darth Vader, you're doing it right. So anyway, I'm doing my breathing, keeping myself warm, have not enough layers on. It's gray, it's chilly, we're on the river, we're cruising the river for about an hour and a half. Because they really want to slow you down. They want to get you out of that city time. They want to get you onto river time, they call it. And just really slow down. There's nowhere to go, nowhere to be. Just get in tune with the moment. And of course, everybody's like, this is boring. Or, you're having all sorts of thoughts about it. And so finally we get to this little beach and they set up for lunch. And we're going to have lunch at this little beach. Then we're going to cruise a little further and get to our campsite. So we stop on this beach. I take everybody through movement and breathing, get everybody warmed up. They're preparing lunch. They've got just a little tent for the lunch table. It's a tiny little tent, like literally like 2 by 6, 2 feet by 6 feet. This thing is not, there's very little room for anybody to be able to stand under it or eat. It's certainly not meant to be eaten under. And so just as lunch is being served, it starts to pour rain, like pouring rain. And it was this really incredible experience of getting your plate of food and watching the mind searching for where do I go that I can eat lunch and not be soaking wet or have rain just drenching my plate of food. And there's nowhere. There's a little crevice between these two boulders with this little tree that's kind of hanging over it. I think to myself, that's a good place to go. So I go over there. It's not providing any coverage at all. It's just completely, the rain is just pouring through the tree. And I just started laughing as I'm eating and shivering, laughing and eating, thinking of all the funny things that are running through my head about, surely someone's going to stop the rain. Surely there will be somewhere I can get dry, and letting all of it go, just one thought after another, just letting them go because I'm surrendering to the reality in front of me, which is, wow, I never thought I would ever eat my lunch out in the pouring rain, and here I am, and it's no big deal. It's no big deal. We're just doing it. We're just doing it. We're gonna do it, whether we have a smile on our face or whether we're completely miserable. And so I might as well just enjoy this lunch out in this rain, which is a completely miraculous and impactful experience. And the trip really became this experience of surrender, of letting go over and over again, of just surrendering to what is. And I realized through it what a practice it's become for me to learn how to relax and rest. And I think rest and relaxation go hand in hand with surrender, for me at least, having spent my life attempting to prove myself through all the things that I'm doing and everything that I'm accomplishing. And so with that mindset, there can come this completely unsustainable, exhausting death march to work nonstop doing, nonstop thinking that the thing you're looking for is on the other side of success or whatever it might be, and just allowing myself to rest when I'm tired. Because with that mindset, you'll start grinding it out. You know, you'll start doing things just for the sake of doing it out of this sense of lack, and so you'll totally burn yourself out. And it was a really interesting and incredible experience for me to recognize how far I've come personally in this learning how to rest, learning how to surrender to what's happening inside of me. And the river is just the ultimate teacher of that, you know, being out in the wilderness. I mean, you've got to shit in a bucket, you know, there's no bathroom, you know, there's anything you want, you have to put effort forth to get it, you know, which is something that we don't have. We don't really have that experience. We have an immense amount of opportunities thanks to the conveniences of civilization, that we can validate and legitimize ourselves out of doing anything all the time, you know? And so it's a really powerful experience to be out there in the wilderness where, you know, it's 2:00 in the morning, or you don't know what time it is, but it's pitch black outside and you've got to go to the bathroom. Are you going to get out of your tent? Your mind is like, we can hold it. We don't need to go. Do I need to go that bad? But I really got to go. Do I need to just go out of the tent? It's pitch black out there. Geez, I don't want to walk through the dark. I don't even want to step outside of the tent. And then you're just like, I just have to go. I have to go. I have to make a decision and go, because otherwise I'm just going to be spinning on this and getting into more pain because I've got to go to the bathroom even more, you know? And everything is like that, you know, every decision, everything that comes up is this experience of, there's something I have to do. How long am I going to work my mind around it to try to figure out how not to do it, or how to do it a different way, or X, Y, Z? And when do I just let go of all that stuff and just do the thing that I have to do? And what a powerful trip that is when you bring that into your living life, you know, your normal life.
Yeah.
Just getting out of that mind noise.
Totally. Yeah, life's become easy, right? Like everything is at your doorstep. You don't even have to go buy food anymore. It just, you know, gets like brought to you even, right? Like it's too easy. And
so easy.
We don't appreciate it, and we have no connection to nature. So I think what you did there is important. It's actually important for kids as well. I think they should do it very early on, you know, just to get that connection with nature. Like I tried to do that with my son as well, you know, where like basically, you know, on an island here, and, you know, just the little things like getting the fish, you know, completely like showing him how to, you know, butcher it and stuff. And it's, dude, you know, these things like blood, right? Right. These, you know, it's not like the chicken breast that's pink, you know, from the shop, right?
Right.
You know, there's an animal dying there. So eat the whole thing, right? Don't waste anything. Like those little things, right?
Absolutely, dude. And yes.
Completely forgot about that. But let's go back to that experience that I think we have that in common, right? Like we both had that phase and in our lives, right? I think it was with you also around your Saturn return, right? At 29, where we, you know, got that gift that kind of helped us to move into higher states of awareness, right? Through pain, though.
Yeah.
Right. Both of us did that. And I think that was, you know, back then when I listened to your story a couple of years ago, I was like, man, this actually makes sense to talk about this stuff, right? Like it actually helps people on the other end. Yeah. And it helps yourself too, right? To work through it.
Absolutely.
But why is it always that we, you know, I think with us men, like we have to have these hard phases in our life that we really get it, Because I mean, I'm sure through your NFL career, like you had these little hints, right? Like, hey man, slow
Oh
down,
yeah.
right?
And
Like
big
you're in
hints
pain,
like
exactly.
back
And
blows
you
out.
can talk about that, all of that if you want. But like with me, it was the same thing. But then it has to like completely explode, right? We have to reach that absolute rock bottom, right? Like you also say it's either die or change, right? Like that, those are your words. And with me, it was the exact same. Like I literally like I either die or I have to change, right? And then I changed, right? But what do you think? Why does it have to be so drastic, or like mostly?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question, dude, and something I've pondered. I've spent a lot of time contemplating this. And what comes to me right now, I don't think I've ever verbalized this. It literally has come to me as you were asking that. Our consciousness is so dense from the culture that we've come up in, the society that we've come up in. Our consciousness is really dense. Material things are what we assume to be the ultimate reality. We assume that the table is real. We assume that the money is real. We assume that doing the job is real. We assume that getting the stuff is real. We assume that our consciousness is very dense and it holds on. We stick on things. There's an incredible book called The Secret History of the World by a guy named Mark Booth. And he talks about the history of humanity through the lens of ancient esoteric wisdom from the great mystery schools, the Freemasons, the Golden Dawn, the Rosicrucians. That's a whole other conversation in and of itself. I mean, we talked about
Yeah.
touching on Atlantis. Maybe we'll circle back to this in a moment. But, he does this through ancient texts and ancient ideologies and painting this picture of the history of humanity through another lens that's not religiously oriented but spiritually oriented. He talks about humanity as at earlier stages in our development, our consciousness was very fluid. It was very fluid and light. You think about the ancient Greeks, ancient Egyptians, their gods were real. They existed before them, not as or in their imagination, but actually they believed that the tree nymphs, spirits of the tree, were speaking to them. Spirits of the oceans were speaking to them. They communed with these spirits and entities and gods, and these things were alive, right? But through this, he tells the story in an interesting way. You see the necessity of solidifying our consciousness, so making our consciousness becoming more literal, as it were. So then, through the ages, through the development of our species and our consciousness, we got ourselves to this point where feelings don't matter. The feelings that we have, our intuitive body is not something that we give a whole lot of credence to, because it's thought driven, it's really materially oriented and thought driven, action oriented. And so when your consciousness becomes so dense in that way, you don't take into account those, call them spiritual hints that the universe is giving you and it's all in front of our face. That's why it has to be pain, because the body is the thing that we understand. So there's pain in the body, yet we haven't taken the leap to recognize that the pain in the body is actually indicative of pain in the psyche, pain in the heart, pain in the spirit, pain in the soul. That's really all the physical body is. It's this transmitter of information from the psychic realm to the physical realm. And so it takes some time on our individual journey, it takes some time for us as we seek balance, because that's really what it comes down to, right? For men like us, we get to a place where we've reached critical mass on a way of living that's destroying us, and we have that insight through pain. We gain insight through pain. We gain recognition or revelation through pain. And so then we begin to look at it, and that allows us this process of lightening our load. Think about enlightenment. It's a light consciousness. It's very light. You're not holding on to shit, dude. And with that not holding on, you can be very present. You can experience pain, and it's not a trauma.
Yeah.
The pain becomes a trauma when our consciousness is really dense and we're holding on to it. Had this another incredible revelation out on the river. And I've talked about this before, and a good friend of mine who was one of the facilitators on the river doing a lot of sound activation using her voice, and she's a medicine woman, and she always does this animal trauma release technique where you go to each energy center of your body, the chakras, and each one has a sound and a movement. And she gives this explanation too, that this was developed by these shamans and medicine people over the centuries as they observed animals dealing with just managing life, you know? And so you think about a lion and a gazelle, and lion's chasing down a gazelle. The gazelle is literally in a fight for its life, the chase of its lifetime. Think about the gazelle manages to get away. By some miracle, the gazelle gets away. They find their way to safety. That gazelle is just going to go under a tree somewhere. It's going to go lie down connected to the earth, and it's going to rest, and it's going to breathe until its nervous system settles down. And then it's going to get on with its life. The gazelle isn't going to walk around the rest of its life going, I was chased by that lion. Did you guys see that? I was chased by a lion. I can't go out anymore. I can't run around the savannah. I was chased by a lion. But we do that. As humans, we do that. And, you know, this isn't to demean pain and suffering. We've all been through it. We've all been traumatized. But if you have the capacity to just feel the pain and the trauma, feel the pain, feel it in your nervous system, breathe, learn how to rest. And she had this experience while she was while we were doing this exercise, or right before that, she was drinking her coffee that morning, and a honeybee flew into her coffee. It landed in her coffee, and she went, oh no, and poured out the coffee to get the honeybee out of the coffee because she didn't want it to drown. And she watched as the honeybee made its way onto this leaf, and it just sat there on this leaf. And she was like, God, is it dead? What happened? Oh no. And then she watched it and she realized it was just resting. It was just resting on this leaf. And she thought, wow, look at that. When we've experienced pain or trauma, we just need to rest. Just need to rest. You know, and so you think about animals, they're not holding on to anything. They don't have time. They don't have the luxury of thinking about a whole lot of shit. It's live. It's survive. It's do the tasks. It's eat. It's move. It's drink water. It's breathe. And so that's a very light and fluid consciousness. You know, so I think going back to answer the question, the issue that we have, that I see personally the world moving through, evolving back, or balancing the scales back towards a more fluid, light consciousness, because we've gotten to this place where our consciousness is so dense. That sound really, did you hear that? That thing fucking was like, yeah, right on, bro. This is what it is. You know, so that to me, and a lot of men think about it, dude. When you're a little kid, how many people around us, whoever it was like, don't cry, don't be a pussy. What are you, a little bitch? You don't show emotion. Whoa, you're upset. Don't be upset. And so as men, how has that served us? It hasn't. And it's nobody's fault. And it's been passed down
No.
through generations that had to be like that. Those men who went to World War II, bro, they had to be like that.
Yeah.
Yo, there's a psychopath who is trying to take over the world, who's burning people alive. Oh, you don't want to go fight? We don't have the option, bro. We don't have that option. If you want there to be a future for our children, we got to go fight. And so,
Yeah.
But here we are, we're in a new stage, we're in a new phase. And so, in order for men in particular to be the mountain, to be the king of their household, to be the leader of their household, the protector and provider of their families, we have to develop this emotional capacity, which comes with a lightening of the load and a lightening of our consciousness so that we can be more fluid and allow these things to move through us rather than holding on, buttoning it up, keeping it closed down, all that stuff. What do you think? I mean, to me, that feels like that feels like the why. Why do we need the pain? Why can't? Because then you can get to the insight, right? We can develop ourselves to now, Max. You're going through your life, something happens, you see the message. You go, okay, I might not know exactly what's being said to me right now, but somewhere inside of me, I know exactly what's being said to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I said, it helps us move to a different, state, like a higher awareness of stuff, right? Like
Yes,
it's not
absolutely.
like it's just a teacher or anything. It actually it moves you, right? Like it moves you in a different direction. It lifts you up, right?
Yeah,
And
perfect.
I don't think that you ever like drop down again, right? Like if you actually take it seriously, right? I think you stay there, right? Because just like you said, once you're there, you cannot unsee stuff, right? You cannot unhear, your own body telling you, okay, something's wrong at this moment, right? Like, because pain will, like, same with me, I went to therapy for a long time, right? Like a long period where I really had to surrender because it was so painful. Like I couldn't lay down fully straight, right? Like, go through all the steps. Like it was like proper therapy, right? Like if you don't surrender to that pain, you won't get through it.
Yes.
Right. If you try to fight it, if you're already thinking about the next session, like, fuck, this is going to hurt again. Right. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, you're not going to get anywhere. Right. Like you just have to take each day. Right. And breathe. Right. Breathe in the session. It's all breathing. Right. Like it's just nothing else. Like if you don't breathe, you won't get through it.
Yeah. So it's funny you say that. You say that. I had that thought like in the last 24 hours. I was like, it's all breathing, dude.
No.
It's all breathing. It's funny. I think you're talking about body work, right? Talking about doing body work or therapy.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting but in my mind, that's what you're talking about because I thought about when I had this thought that it's all breathing. I remembered when I was a kid. I was a 13-year-old kid when I started playing football. And thank God my mother was so tapped in to the body. She had done cadaver studies. She was on her way to becoming the master somatic healer that she really is. And, I'd get at least one massage a week. And they would be fucking intense. Yeah. And, I'm 13. I'm like 12 to 14 years old, starting to develop this understanding that I can experience severe pain. And if I can get into my breath, I can handle it.
Yeah.
And this thought occurred to me literally like in the last 24 hours. Literally. And I remembered this as a kid. I was like, man, I started this understanding, this practice so long ago, over 20 years ago now, of understanding the breath's correlation to pain reduction or just easing the experience. So, and that was the thought that came out the other side was it's all breathing, dude. It's always been the breathing.
Always. Yeah, with me it started even earlier, like I first had an asthma attack when I was like 4 or 5.
Wow,
so
dude, me too.
That was my fight. That was my fight all my life, Wanted to run, couldn't, right? Get your breathing intact, waking up at night, like completely
what would trigger the asthma? Because for me, it was cats.
Yeah, cats.
Dude, we had a cat, and I had one of the, like, if you want to call it an early trauma of my life, was we got this cat. I was probably 4 or 5, maybe 6. And we got this new cat, and had never had a cat. Or we had one cat before, but he was really old, and there was never any issues. But then we got this cat, and it was sleeping in my bed, and I woke up in the middle of the night and couldn't breathe. You're totally right, dude. Totally right.
Yeah, there's 2 different kinds of asthma, right? So you've got one that's kind of baseline, and then you've got the other one that hits in when you, let's say, have a high BPM, right, like high heart rate, or get it triggered through allergies, right? And that's the latter is the one I have, right? So that I'm working on, like this is this mission of mine to get this out of the family, because it's father, grandfather, his mother, and so on. But I actually think it's doable, like all the doctors, like when you're young, they say, yeah, this is it. If you haven't lost it by the year, by your 16th birthday, like you will have it forever. That's the language that you have to listen to, right? And so it gets programmed into your mind and then into your body, and it stays there, right? Like the older I get, the more I'm like, fuck, this doesn't have to stay, And I know it's possible to get it completely out of the system, and I'm working on it like intensely since a couple of years. But yeah, it's definitely it's such an interesting thing, because I think it's also very connected to like some spiritual sense, right? And I understand these topics like better and better. Maybe not to go into too much depth here, because I'm not like 100% certain of my thesis here, right? Like once I'm good with it, I will share it. But yeah, there's definitely stuff that gets passed on, and it's trauma. It's trauma. It's the breath, right? It's a shock, right?
Yeah,
and from that point onwards, it's in the system, and it's very much connected to the wars, I think, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've been in a battle since the beginning of time, dude.
Yeah,
humans, with ourselves, with each other, with the world. I mean, that shit's in our DNA, and it's time to let it go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's time to just do it differently, because that's how we're going to get to the other side.
Yeah. Yeah, but what you also said before about rest, I think that's a big one, because like even when we just think, okay, I mean, I know that you also took pills, and I also had, through that pain, also had a phase of opiates, and I was really deep into that shit. And
you were?
Yeah. And it's like, it's nasty. Like, you think it's going to help you, and then you think you're sleeping, but you're not actually recovering.
Yeah.
Right? That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's not rest. Right.
Yeah.
And it's also, and then when you talked about, I'm like, depression, deep rest, right? Like, I think you just need deep rest, right? If you deep rest.
Yeah, that's a deep one.
Right.
Dude.
That's a
fucking,
because I just like you said it, like all these people where you say, okay, shit, man, like what's going on with them? They're not resting.
Yeah.
They haven't found that outlet yet, right? That gets them down, right? Like they have the wrong partner, where they constantly have their nervous system, on high alert. I had that one as well. That was actually also that same phase, right? Like that partner before that. The result of that was that whole explosion, right? Like, I think that's one of, because that's one of the worst things you can do as a man, is like have that wrong partner, right? And in that sense, that always keeps you on your toes. Like you have to, perform, you have to do this, like, like.
Yeah, that is a difficult one, man.
That's a killer.
It's a difficult one. That once you get to that place, you recognize it and you realize like the only way is to get yourself out of that. It's a difficult one.
Yeah, totally. So your phase as the professional player in the NFL, were you doing yoga back then constantly? Because I know that your mother, like, she taught you that, you and your brother, right? Because that would be interesting to know, because like usually that keeps you, from having all these major breakdowns, right? Like in a body sense, right?
Yeah, it would have helped. I wasn't doing it enough.
Yeah.
I mean, it was part of, there was an element of it, but I was too much on the war path of just conquering and doing everything I could to make people fear me, doing everything I could to gain as much power and success as I thought I could possibly manage. And that was the overriding mission, So these are blinders. We all have them. We all have these blind spots, especially when you're in that dense consciousness. You're chasing something. And people who have attained the highest levels of success in all realms have essentially, you forfeit your life to achieve this thing, and everything, your whole life is organized towards achieving this goal or getting this success. And so it's very difficult to see anything outside of that. Your body's breaking down. Your mind is breaking down. Things are breaking down, but you don't see it as a sign from your physical body, from your heart, your soul, that maybe something needs an adjustment, or maybe there's something that's not working here. Especially if you're attaining the success that you're seeking, you're getting the money, essentially, is what it boils down to. As long as that check is coming, you're getting the money. It's very difficult to see outside of that, unless you're doing it for so long, which is usually what happens when people come to me with wanting to do coaching or wanting to be a part of the group, is that they've recognized that the way they're living their life is no longer serving them. And there's something else out there. I'm not sure what, but fuck, my life isn't what I thought it should be or what I want it to be right now. And I know there's another way. But that's a very difficult thing to see when you're when you're on the mission, when you're on the war path, as it were, because you've got these blinders on that are just taking you in the direction of this thing. And it's difficult to see the reality of what you need, or that you need to rest, or that there's something else, or maybe this isn't what we wanted. That hasn't been there yet. So for me, my football career, yes, there was yoga. I'd go to yoga classes. I knew that the energy was it was woven into the tapestry of my life then, I would say, though I didn't understand what it really was. And I didn't use it enough because it hurt. It started to hurt, the more my body, which would have been, that was the pain I should have been going towards, was getting into a yoga class or doing more yoga during my football career. because that pain would have been actually helping to restore me rather than continuing to break me down.
Yeah, I mean, also in my family, we also had that alcohol issue. I mean, I had it as well. You know, I worked through that. Same with you, right? And
Yeah.
the connection just to the topic that you just talked about, right? Like, I thought about this, and you know, we have this picture, right, of that. Or, I mean, in the US, it's even stronger than here in Europe. But like that athlete, you know, he has everything that he wants, right? Like he does. This is the epitome of the human existence, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get all the girls, you have all the money, right? Like there's a PR team in the background, you know, cleaning up all the mess they're doing, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, on the other hand, there's these women, right? Like they have these models in front of them, you know, with the perfect looks, and that gets ingrained into your mind at a very early age, right? So you
Mm.
think this is what you have to strive towards to, right? Like, like this is what you have to do,
Mm.
you know. And then when
Yeah.
you're on that path, it doesn't matter, right, if there's pain. It doesn't matter if you're losing your family, right? If that family breaks apart, it doesn't matter, you know, if that friend leaves, because you're on that path of getting there, right? And that's why I think it's so important to talk about this, because, you know, the internet is, you know, especially kids have access to everything, right? And they see more and more of that stuff. And then I think this is a good time to actually, you know, talk about these topics, so they think about this maybe earlier on, hopefully, right? They get these podcasts in front of them, because I think that's so important, right? Like that they kind of get that opportunity to not go down the same route that we went down, right? Because the options are there. And that's, you know, before there was just these magazines, right? And the newspapers and stuff, right? Like, you know, especially our generation, right? Like you're just a bit older than me, but like I remember, you know, it was like that one outlet, you know, you had these you know, these TV stations and whatnot, but now everything is possible to be accessed at all times, right? So I think there's an opportunity here to actually change that, because that's the I think that's the main issue, right? Like having these celebrities in front of you, right? Like thinking this is it, this is where you want to go,
Yeah, it's
right?
very seductive, dude.
Yeah,
It's very seductive. And yeah, and I would say you're absolutely right. I see a lot of hope thanks to the internet, thanks to technology, that there's these generations coming up have an opportunity to see a whole lot of life in front of them. And it's interesting, you know, the reality of stardom, celebrity, alcohol, drugs, whatever it might be, things that may in the past have assumed to be glamorous. You can see the reality of it
yeah,
through the lens of the camera. You see, there's something in you that can sense, whether it's overt or very subtle, there's something in you that senses the disingenuous, the almost grotesque reality, the grotesque truth of these things that are in our life.
hmm.
And so I totally agree, man. Absolutely. It's really this message is important. The reality of your being is really important. Understanding the matrix that we've been brought up in. You know, that's a real thing, and it's cliche. At
No,
this
it's not
stage,
cliche.
it's funny that it's cliche, you know. But the Matrix, the movie, is you should go rewatch that, man. I rewatched all the Matrix movies, and
Hmm.
it's a pretty potent message. It's a pretty potent story narrative because it's so apt for our existence. You know, it's that thing, man, of the density of our consciousness. That's when we're plugged into the matrix. You know, you unplug from the matrix and you lighten the load. Your consciousness becomes more fluid. It becomes more open and available to the reality of your life. And so you're not hooked on these material on this material paradigm, you know? And that takes, for me, it's taken, you know, the combination of experience and studying, and whether or not that's studying ancient texts or studying some of the great spiritual teachers. For me, Ram Dass, Osho, Neem Karoli Baba, some of these guys, these Alan Watts, these prophets and sages that have come through our time, and things like Al-Anon, or just like listening to podcasts, you know, listening to podcasts of people having real conversations about the evolution out of that material existence. And I mean, dude, I see a lot of light, man. I see a lot of people freaking out and saying there's, you know, it's a disaster and the world's coming to an end. And absolutely it is. You know, the old world is coming to an end. We're stepping into an entirely new reality. It's just happening, whether you want it to or not. So right now, you better just let go and surrender to what it is, so that your physiology can literally adapt to the coming change, to the change that's already taking place. You know, and so it's exciting, man. I think it's exciting. I think I see a lot of light and hope. I see a lot of good things. I see there's no place for evil and darkness to hide in this world. It's impossible. It's an impossibility.
Yeah.
And so with that, and that's the rectifying of our own soul as well on the macro level. You know, all of us have this responsibility, this duty to ourselves, not to anybody else, just a duty to ourselves to bring forth that which is in the darkness inside of us and bring it into the light. And that's not to judge it, that's not to criticize it, that's just to understand the full picture of what's there. And then the power, the energy that darkness holds is totally dissipated. It's completely dissipated and evaporates and has no energy behind it whatsoever. And so you can move on through in the light. And that's the same thing in the world. It has no more power once it's revealed into the light. The darkness, the evil, it doesn't have any more power once it's revealed.
Yeah, truth doesn't need any energy to you know, say the truth, but lies.
Exactly.
Right. And that's just from an energetic standpoint, it's not going to last, right?
Totally.
That's a beautiful thing about this phase now, and especially those last couple of years, right? Like when you've thought about these topics, right? You know, whatever we want to call them, like early on, before that, now you're actually optimistic. You know, the people that haven't thought about them and they just got thrown into it, basically, they had to face it, you know, through the media now. They're pessimistic because they haven't like actually put any time and effort into understanding what really goes on, right? I mean, I was super pessimistic in my early 20s, like even because I learned about all that stuff, you know, all these dark forces, everything that goes on in the background,
of course,
early on. And I didn't even want to have kids because of that. You know, I said like, fuck this, I'm not going to put any children into this world, you know?
Right, of course.
Like, it's so fucked up. So, you know, once you understand it's all about you, right? If you work on yourself, you can offset and, you know, a bunch of people, and like you can really do the work, and you can, that's basically where you should go and could go, then it all makes sense, right? And therefore I'm very optimistic. I think this is a great turning point. It's happening right now, actually, right? And a lot of people understood it. A lot of people, you know, get all these toxins out of their system, and they want to, you know, improve their life. And I mean, surely there's big parts that they gave up, right?
Yeah.
People gave up. They said, okay, fuck.
Yeah.
I believe the lie. I'm going to stay there. I'm going to drop, you know, like drown in there. And because I cannot face myself, cannot look at myself in the mirror because I fell for the lie, and now I have to stick to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a heavy one.
No, absolutely, dude. The beautiful part about that is that no matter who you are, whenever you As long as you make the decision that you're going to give up, you actually perpetually, eternally have an opportunity to pick up the sword again
Mm.
and start living in the light, you know? I mean, it never ends, you
Yeah.
know? Maybe it won't happen this life. Maybe it won't happen this life. But next life. And then even from a bigger scale than that, dude, we're all just here to learn. You know,
Mm.
we're all just here to gain
That's so great about addiction, right?
wisdom and experience, you know?
Because once you've worked through an addiction, you actually know everything is possible. Because
Mm-hmm.
during that phase, you chose the addiction on a daily basis, right? You said, okay, fuck, I know it's not serving me, but I still do it. I want to do it anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
And you pick up that sword all the time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly, dude.
So,
No, you're totally right. Well, that's why, you know, a lot of people, addicts,
mm,
a lot of those people have seen the light, you know? You've seen the truth,
yeah.
especially if you've gotten yourself sober, if you've gotten yourself to the other side of it.
Mm,
Because just exactly what you said, you've been on both sides of the miracle. You know what I mean?
yeah.
You've been on the side of the pessimist, of the this is impossible, life is too much to bear, and found yourself on the other side of the miracle going, wow,
Mm.
anything is possible. Anything is possible. And that's a really powerful way to be, you know?
Yeah, totally. I mean, for people that do not have the opportunity to basically move to a quiet place like you just did or like I did, I think it's hard, right? Like, I think it's, I lived in big cities. I lived in London when I was 18. I lived
Mm,
in Bogota, all cities that have 10 million plus. And like, I enjoyed it back then, right? But
yeah,
now I would never, ever go back to a city like for more than a few days. Like, no chance.
yeah,
Like, it just
yeah,
distracts me way too much from me, right? From doing me. And it just wouldn't work. But,
yeah. It's funny you say that too, because I
mm,
was thinking the other day that how much I love living out in the country.
right.
And there was this time when I loved living in the city.
Mm,
Loved it.
yeah,
Loved the action.
yeah,
Loved the restaurants. Loved the energy.
yeah.
Loved that I could step outside my apartment building and just be in the hustle
Mm,
and the bustle of the people and the things happening and and just like you said, now it's become not not the thing I want to spend my time in.
no chance.
And here's the interesting thing, dude. Here's where the rubber meets the road is whenever you find yourself in any situation, a relationship or a geographical place that is no longer serving you and your needs, it's on you to change it, dude.
Yeah.
You know this. Whether it's a relationship like you talked about earlier or living in a place that no longer suits you, it's only on you. So, how long are you going to live in that, which is inevitably going to shrivel up your life force because you're abandoning your soul? It's just physics, dude. Or it's metaphysics, whatever you want to call it. It is the cause and effect. It's the cause and effect. You start to feel out of water, out of place in any realm of your life, you have to change it. Otherwise, that's the giving up. That's the giving up, which, again, going back to my other point, you can change anytime, dude. You can make that decision to do something new anytime. That's a miracle. That's God. That's
Yeah.
God consciousness. You have the power in any moment, here and now, this moment, here and now. Do it differently. Make the decision, make the change. It's on you. Nobody's going to do it for you, you know?
Powerful. Yeah. I mean, that's tough though, right? I mean,
It is tough. It's the
it was,
toughest thing.
yeah, for me, it was never a problem though. You know, I left home when I was 15, first time I
Mm.
moved country, and then basically moved places, yeah, every 2 years or less,
Wow.
countries literally.
Wow, dude.
So, but my
It's
thing
a lot of
was,
experience.
I thought it was cool, you know, I thought it was, yeah, sure, you know, why not? Like I felt vibrant, right? It would feed my ADD to be in a new place, right? Like to get all, like I have to find out where I'm at, what I'm doing, right? Until I understood that the reason for that was that I didn't feel home anywhere or at home, right? And once I've understood that, then I had to look inside, and I'm like, hey, shit, this is an internal thing, right? This has nothing to do with my surrounding. Doesn't matter. I can keep on moving places every fucking month or so, right? I even moved places in cities a few times, right? I would get an Airbnb for a month and for 2 months, and like always choose like the better one and the better people. And I'm just a fucking like game I was playing, right?
Uh-huh.
But the thing in the end was that I understood that to feel at home was an eternal thing, and then it clicked, right? And that's that. And now
Yeah.
I don't feel like I have to move anymore. Now I'm good
Yeah.
where I'm at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big deal, dude.
Yeah.
That's a big deal right there. Well, in the 12-step program, they call that a geographic. So it's you move your location so that you don't have to change anything on the inside. And then one day, like you, man, you realize you're like, oh, wait, it doesn't matter where I go. Wherever you go, there you are. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's that wonderful saying that I first heard from my dude, Troy Casey, certified health nut.
Yeah.
Some incredible, I'm not sure if it's John Kabat-Zinn or one of the great teachers of the last century, said, wherever you go, there you are, man. You know? And I will say, see, because then you could apply that to, well, Eb, is moving out into the country? Is that just you doing a geographic? You know? You know, it's what is the intention? What is the motivation behind the move, behind the action? Is it because you're moving yourself into a new place that suits your energy and your vibration, your new frequency, which is calling for peace, which is calling for quiet, which is calling for love, which is moving in the flow of the universe or the flow of the divine order of your life? Then that's something different. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah, I had the same thought while I was saying it, because I thought about me actually moving here as well, you know, like moving to the ocean.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the intention. It's why you're doing it, you know. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, on the river, we were having these interesting dialogues about codependency in relationships. I definitely come from a family that's got a lot of codependency going on in it, and that's been a big part of my journey. And so when you find yourself in a relationship coming out of a family situation where there's a lot of codependency, you know, it becomes what the differentiator is. What is the motivation for the actions that you're taking? Are you doing the dishes because you love to be of service and you are emotionally invested in the well-being of your home and your relationship? Or are you doing the dishes because you just don't want to get yelled at, or because you just want to make sure that they know that you're taking care of stuff too, and so doing the dishes ameliorates your guilt and shame for not being enough, for not doing enough, right? You know? But you could do the dishes and it could be this like wonderful divine act of service too. What's the intention behind it? You know, what's the energy behind it? Because that's really what matters when it comes to, I don't know, the outcomes.
Yeah, it's like what's the intention behind being of service, right? Like,
Yeah.
because I had that in my family as well, because both of my parents, like also healers and off service all their life, and I saw how they would give up themselves to help
Mm.
others,
Uh-huh.
right? So I
It
complete
sacrifice themselves.
exactly, and so I moved completely away from that. I said, okay, I'm not going to go that down that route, and I'm going to do everything else but that, right? But in the end, intrinsically, probably, all my gifts are there as well,
Mm. Oh
and
yeah, for sure, bro.
and but that's a very, very deep one, because like you think, okay, these people, they look like they want to help, but just like what you said before, right? Like it's a twisted thing, right? They don't want to
Mm-hmm.
face themselves, so they have to help all the time, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
deep
Yeah.
one. Before, when we talked about your sports career, I had a thought, because I don't know if you want to talk about that, but like performance enhancing drugs, right?
Mm.
Let's call them that. Like, was that a thing? And how much do you think that impacted like your that pain later on as well? Because like I have one story in my family. It's one of my cousins, and he was supposed to play professional basketball, really, really talented. And I know there was something going on with that kind of stuff when he was super young, so he grew super fast,
Mm.
and now he's almost in a wheelchair, right? Because he like
Wow.
his body couldn't cope with all that
Mm.
pressure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it wasn't aligned. Nothing was aligned. It was growing too fast. He was moving too much, all that pressure from the sports. And now he's like moving like a robot,
Uh-huh.
and his life is kind of completely fucked, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, if you want to go down that a bit, if you can talk about it.
I mean, I never took any steroids or anything like that. I just never needed it. I was always the biggest guy on the team. In my body, I was just physically gifted. I never took any steroids. I never saw any of it, but there were definitely guys who were doing it, and I heard stories of guys who were doing it. Like, a teammate would say, "Oh yeah, I got in so and so's car the other day, and there were like needles and thing
Mm.
and shit like in the back seat." Um, Honestly, the guys who were doing the steroids never seemed to really have do that much on the field. Um, there was kind of in the NFL. It's hard to do them. It's hard to do them. There's random drug tests for PEDs all the time. I mean, the only real performance enhancing drug I took was Adderall during my football career, and I got a therapeutic use exemption to use it.
Damn.
So there was a lot of Adderall. There were a handful of guys who were taking it.
So heavy on the joints, though, right? Like
Oh my
the
God! So
Achilles and
just
stuff can
terrible
snap
for
just like that.
yeah, yeah, terrible for all that dehydration, all of that
Yeah,
stuff.
the fascia. Mm.
There were definitely guys taking all kinds of stuff. It's difficult to do that. I don't even really know how you would go about doing it, but um, I think in the NFL in particular, it's like pain pills are really the number one
No.
just thing that I think they're addressing. I think they've done a good job of whatever restricting it or making it just finding better options.
But even just that stuff that's legal, right? I mean, that's already enough, right? Like
Of
you guys are allowed
course,
to
dude.
smoke over there, right? Like you can get the legal weed, and I mean it's coming over here now too. But I mean, especially once you've smoked like that Californian weed, I mean, it's just lights out. I spent some time in LA and Vegas and stuff. Like, man, that's a different level. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah, it's
cannot operate
crazy,
on that
dude.
stuff,
It's crazy. It's
man.
totally crazy.
Different breed.
Yeah, I always have to. I've got to get like the outdoor sun-grown
Mm, yeah,
organic cannabis because the THC levels in most of the shit's just way too high.
yeah,
It's been
yeah.
it's
So
been
much.
cultivated to have way too much THC in it, so I can't handle that. I don't like it.
No, not too much. Yeah, I mean, weed kind of saved me as well with the pain that I had, with that nerve pain. I think that kind
Oh
of
yeah,
helped me
yeah.
transition out of it. But then I was stuck to it a bit, and then it was fairly easy for me to get off of it. Like
Uh-huh.
all the drugs that I tried, everything was fairly easy to get off of it. But the heaviest one was alcohol for me, by far. Was the last one that I got rid of. The one I had to work on the most,
Yeah,
like by
yeah.
far. And drinking would trigger everything else.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
Of course.
That's the first one, especially when you're in Munich and Bavaria, you have a beer for lunch. Like it's normal, it's like not a big
Uh-huh.
deal, it's
Uh-huh.
normal.
Yeah,
And
and it's
then,
probably really good too.
but of course it's great. I mean,
Yeah.
tastes amazing, but
Yeah, it's like the best in the world.
it's part of the culture, right? Like it just like it's here in Croatia, it's part of the culture to have a glass of wine for lunch. My grandfather, with the vineyard and stuff, it's normal, right? But it's a different drinking, right?
Yeah.
It's not that, hey, I want to get blacked out drunk. I'm gonna enjoy that glass,
It's just
right?
yeah, totally. Which I think is another thing, I think that's what's the cultural energy around it?
Exactly.
In America, the consumption of alcohol has a lot to do with burying feelings, suppression and repression. But in Europe, the consumption of alcohol is a communal, connective activity, where people are doing it because it's part of the aroma of the meal. It's part of the experience to connect with your loved ones, have the glass of wine with the pasta, or, what I mean? It's like, it's a whole, so you think about all that mental energy that's infused in the way of being, like all of that stuff influences and colors the experience. So the Western, or really the American culture around alcohol is very much about suppression, consumption, repression. I don't want to feel what I'm feeling. Let me feel something else.
Yeah, it's when you see when people mix stuff so it doesn't taste like it's supposed to taste, right? Like you water down the beer even, which is ridiculous, but
Yeah. No,
so I can drink, so I can keep drinking, and I just get drunk, but like it doesn't feel like I'm drinking anything.
There's no price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird stuff.
Yeah. Interesting thought, dude.
Yeah. How was that? Because you went Italy just a short while ago, and it was your first time in Europe. How was that culture difference for you? Because I mean, me going to the States for the first time, sure, it's a little bit different and stuff, but I think this way is much different, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was a really powerful thing, man. I thought it hit me very quickly how no one in Italy is thinking about how to constantly be better or get more or do more. Everybody's your focus, the focus, the priorities that take precedence there are family, connection.
Yeah.
Are you living passionately? Are you enjoying your life? Are you enjoying your life, dude? That's a really powerful thing. Are you enjoying your life? Everyone there is enjoying their life. They're not looking for something else. They're not thinking it should be some other way. They're not thinking it must be like that. They're just enjoying the miraculous and the mundane moments. It's all beautiful. Like,
It's very family centered, definitely.
Yeah, it's very family oriented in a really beautiful way. And that's just a completely foreign concept to Americans generally, and so that was a really powerful thing to witness and feel and be immersed in for that week. And it's something that, I've been working towards. I've been, practicing for the last few years, is moving towards that way of being.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's the way to go. I think the family unit has to be strong.
It has to be, man.
It has to be. I've all the problems that we see kind of roots in that. A lot of it, most of it probably. It's I just had Italian guy, Tiziano Sguesso, on the podcast, just uploaded it last Sunday. And he talked, family constellation guy. And it's so interesting how it's all connected. It's all connected in the family constellation. It's crazy. You know, when you have a money block, it's the mother mostly, right? Like when you have addictions, like me and you, it's the father. Right? Was your father present? Yeah.
Are you asking me, or is that rhetorical?
No. It was, because with me, I thought about that because my father was present, but he wasn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I probably needed more of a father figure in my young years. So my mother was overly present. And then, the mother takes over some of the jobs that the father has to take care of usually, right? And then you have this whole, like basically, like a mix-up of duty and a mix-up of the path that you're on. But how, I don't know if it's too personal or not, but like, how was that with your daughter when you kind of had to decide, okay, I'm gonna, leave her with a mother, and I'm gonna, have to basically choose that route. How was that for you? That phase, how did you work through that?
It was very difficult. One moment at a time, man. One moment at a time. Learning how to not recognizing when just recognizing I could take it one thing at a time and communicate my way through it, and not jump to any preconceived idea about what it's got to be or how to make it right or anything like that. And just feeling it all the way through. Being a father, man, it's been an incredible experience, and one that a position, a role that I love to be in, and the ultimate, it's the ultimate dance, dude. Learning how to be a father, like learning how to allow, learning how to be available, learning how to be, essentially cultivate my presence as a safe one, as a secure platform for my child to live on and express themselves freely through. And that's a really interesting practice, because it's not always what you think.
It's the hardest one.
Yeah, it's the ultimate.
Because you get the feedback right away. When you're conscious about like the feelings of your kid, and you see the reaction by, the actions that you just kind of performed, shouting out like because of something stupid, something happened, like a glass broke, or you dropped something,
totally, dude.
And then you just react like overly reactive, and you just see that kid like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah,
and
totally.
And then you think about, was that really necessary?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's the ultimate assessment of yourself, right? Like, do you work, because you have to work on yourself constantly. At least that's the case with me, right? Like I always think, okay, I progressed and stuff, and you get slapped in the face like constantly.
Yeah.
Like it
Totally,
doesn't stop. Doesn't stop.
Yeah, it's constant for sure.
Yeah.
It's totally constant. But if you're up to it and you're present, you can make some really radical changes for your family lineage,
Absolutely. And I think that's our duty as well, like there's no point in holding grudges against your parents because they just didn't know better at the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Like they did their best. I'm sure of that. And it's up to you now to change stuff. Right.
Yeah. As a father, I've had that revelation many times where I found myself in a position that I remember my mother or father being in. And I found a lot of grace and compassion and forgiveness because I'm like, here I am
Mm.
and doing I'm doing something that is either can be perceived the same, or I recognize that they were doing the best they could at the moment, even though it felt like a really fucked up thing when I was a kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a really powerful thing.
Yeah, totally. Because you can never really understand it, what they had to go through until you go through it.
Exactly.
It's just a different level.
Yeah.
It's just a different level. Like this constant, like trying to be present and constantly trying to, control whatever you're doing, and, in a sense of reactiveness and stuff like that. If you're working on that, right? Like it's hard, right? And you get all that pressure from life, and you snap sometimes, surely, right? Like you're gonna have that wrong decision. Like you're gonna make it.
Oh yeah.
It's the way it is, right?
Just keep letting go, dude. Just keep surrendering.
Totally. So do you wanna talk about Atlantis a bit, or do you have to go?
Let's do a part 2, brother.
Let's do a part 2. Yeah, no problem.
And we'll dive into Atlantis.
Sounds good, man. And enjoy your day. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, brother.
If people want to find you after part 1, if they don't know what to look for, where should they go?
Yeah. Check me out on Instagram at EDS Britton.
Yeah.
On TikTok
Community.
Join my group mentorship program, Life and Flow. Max is a part of it.
Yeah, that's great.
We have weekly live calls, talk about all kinds of cool stuff. I really created it to provide a platform where I could share all the resources, practices, tools, ideas that have helped me on my journey. So it's a lot of fun. We have weekly live calls. It's an epic community. Max is a part of it. Great group of people. There's exclusive content and offers and discounts and all kinds of good stuff there. That's on School, Life and Flow. You can find that link on my Instagram. Check out my book, The Eben Flow, Basic Tools to Transform Your Life.
We'll link it.
That's on Amazon. And that's about it, bro. Appreciate you, Max.
Appreciate you.
Love this convo, man.
Yeah, it was good.
Under the pines, baby.
Exactly. We're just getting started.
That's right, dude.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.